Hey there, welcome to Be Courageous. And today I am privileged to have with me, of course, I'm Tony Barton, your host. I have Apostle Kelly Lohrke and Pastor Jeremiah Hicks with me, both incredible men of God, fearless and bold. And I consider most and an honor that they're my friends. So thank you for being here. I know you guys stay busy with all kinds of things going on. Apostle Kelly, one of the most amazing things to me about your ministry is how you groom and you grow these pastors up within your ministry, and they sit out. And you've got Cure churches in multiple states and multiple locations. How is that overseeing all of that?
It's number one, it's a joy. Let me say that. See young men and women fulfill their destiny and answering the call of God, going to cities and getting people saved and pastoring just from nothing, and watch them get saved, watch them go out, answer God's call to go into all the world and preach the gospel, and then raise up disciples like Jesus said. It's a challenge, but it is very rewarding and exciting to see them fulfill their purpose.
And I love that about you. And I love that about the Cure Church that you do that. And right there is Pastor Jeremiah. And you've been with Pastor Lohrke since you were 17 years old?
Yes, sir. 17 years old. Came here as a young teenager, just graduated high school, was in college. And to be honest, changed my life. Never would have imagined being where I am today. But a lot of it has to do with God just putting me in the right place. And I know man doesn't like to take the glory, but it has a lot to do with Apostle Kelly and this church that was already here. I grew up, as a matter of fact, maybe 10 minutes away from this church, and I always used to see stuff that they would do as a younger kid before my parents separated, and never did I know that this place would change my life as a young man.
And I am like amazed. I'm excited. I see all the stuff that's going on Facebook and other social media platforms. You guys aren't afraid to speak truth. That's what Be Courageous is all about, truth and reality. That's the place I want to live. And right now I'm looking at culture today. It's just becoming non-existent. It's just culture's just blown up, and truth and reality in some ways are hard to find, but it's going to be pastors, it's going to be people such as yourself that are going to keep fighting to ensure that truth and reality remains in culture, or even it grows within culture. We have something to talk about. And before we do, I want to show this clip. And it came out, what was it, about a week ago, 10 days, something like that?
About a week
The
ago.
news story. It is. I knew it hadn't been that long, but it involves something that we actually did a year ago. We confronted the school board in Kansas City, Kansas on this specific issue. So bear with me. I'm going to switch over and see if I can show this. This will be the first time I've done it this way, but let's see if I can make it work. Boom, there it is. Let's go. So this is the end. I couldn't find a stop, but it's going to go right to the beginning, and I'm going to let it play.
The federal government investigating 3 local Kansas school districts for their policies on gender identity. Olathe, Shawnee Mission, and KCK schools are the schools in question here. Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach says they're violating federal law by not informing parents about their child's identity preferences at school.
I was appalled when it was brought to my attention the wording. I cannot imagine somebody withholding information about my child or grandchild. But I'm not going to be quiet about this. It's not a threat. It's just not right. If anything else, it's very discouraging that you can't even look at the people that are speaking to you.
And I think it's important that we know that the only people that hide things about students and children from their parents are predators. They're the ones that tell them to keep secrets. And we don't want to keep secrets from our parents. But these kids who are dealing with identity issues, those are emotional outbursts that they don't know what to do with their life. Do you guys have kids? Would you be mad if we kept something from you? Would you be mad as me as a youth pastor if I found something about your kids, your grandkids, and I didn't tell you about it? Yeah. And something came out and you're like, how's the youth pastor? You guys will leave your church.
As currently written, the guidelines do not conform to state law and state they undermine a parent's fundamental right to exercise primary care over the care and upbringing of their children.
Attorney General Kobach told me that he says they're violating the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act by not disclosing that gender identity information to parents.
That was an incredible moment. and it was a great victory for parents. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and end this and go back to our conversation. But I mean, what a moment! And you know, it started a year ago. So going back in history, going back to the beginning, what caused you to be involved with this issue?
I, I, First of all, when it was just brought to our attention, when we found out about it, and the first thing was, look, first of all, this is America. You can do whatever you want in America. That's the land of freedom, freedom of speech, you have freedom to choose what you want. But what struck a chord with us is that, number one, these are our children. They're not the state's children. And the way the language was and the way we were interpreting this was that teachers and school officials can keep that information away from the parents if they felt like the parents were not in agreement with their kids' decision or confusion or whatever they're facing. And a fundamental right, there are kids, there are grandchildren, and parents should have a right to what their children's facing their issues at home. And nothing should be kept from school, especially these kind of things. I mean, school's supposed to be teaching our kids education.
Writing, reading, arithmetic.
Yes.
Totally agree with you on that. And Pastor Jeremiah, when did it come to the forefront of your attention?
You know, the crazy part is I think we were in the middle of something else, and we had discovered that there were some inappropriate books that were floating around some of the school districts. And so I did some research, like I think any person should do. And upon the research, I didn't find that there was just inappropriate books. I also found this type of language, and I sent it to my pastor, Apostle Kelly, and I think we shared it with you, and we met about it. I remember us meeting and talking about it a little bit, and I remember you saying we got to go to the school board with this, and other people need to know about this. And that really, what infuriated me is the language that basically says, because I have children myself, even though they're young. What infuriated me was the separation of, like, we're gonna keep something from parents, and because we're the protector of our children, it ignited something inside of me that said we have to make sure that people know about this, because most parents didn't know. And I can tell you why they didn't know, because when we got to that school board meeting, it wasn't just our church that showed up. There wasn't even a seat left unfilled inside of the main meeting room. They had to go to another meeting room, and you could hear the echoes of them clapping there.
Right. I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but you hit on something here. And I think that this is what kind of set me off too, is the fact that we have people that feel that it is legitimate. It is their right to keep information from parents about their own children. How dare they do something like this? And so, we did. We met, got a couple of attorneys involved, so we knew the right language and the policy and what the law actually said. And I believe we took like 200 plus people to the school board meeting. And it was crazy because you're right. They had to open the overflow. They had law enforcement all over the place, if I remember, because they thought it was going to be a riot or something like that.
I had police call me that are my friends on the force and saying that they were getting calls that we were there to incite a riot. They're just propaganda.
It was nonsense. It was nonsense. So when we're talking about parents and we're talking about people within the church and people outside the church, because I know you frequent the restaurants, the barbershops, and what have you, and you talk about this, what was the reaction of people? How did they respond to finding out that there was an actual quote unquote policy, which they denied was policy, but obviously it was within the school? How did they react?
It's funny you brought that up, because I personally went to some local restaurants right down the street here in Kansas City, Kansas, and I purposely sat there and just talked to people about that policy. And I actually showed them some of the books that were there. I didn't find not one person saying this was okay. And, that's what happens. These officials get in there and they push your agenda, and it's done privately and so forth. But I didn't find anyone at that. Now, of course, when we got on social media, got out there, we got hate for it by some people. But the average citizen was like very thankful that we did that.
So, Jeremiah, you were saying how people didn't know. Was that something that was kind of like one of the main points in all of this? Parents didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, it's true. Parents didn't know what was going on, and this language that that was in the USD 500's um, policy guide really it opened up a whole can of worms
It really
from
did.
them saying, oh, we don't have to tell the parent, and then it makes it seem like they're unsafe at home just because they want to go by something that the parent isn't aware of, and then you bring the state involved, and then that's when you begin to control the kid, and the parents have no rights because they're saying, oh, they're unsafe at home, so they use it as a guise. And so it was appalling. Everybody I talked to was appalled that this was actually happening in our school district. And so
Right.
I do
go
want
ahead.
to address something. Is that uh, people got mad because we brought something to people's attention, but this was already on the books. It's against state law and federal law. It's
Mhm.
already on the books that this is against state law and federal law. And again, this wasn't even a law; it was a policy that they put
That's
into
right. And
place.
I actually have the copy of it right here.
Yeah,
The
but
policy and the
people got mad. I mean, this is a place. This is a country. You vote. We vote officials. This is a law, and all we did was brought the attention to that. Now, I'm going to be clear.
people got mad. Who got
One
mad
thing I just
about
want to say,
bringing this
Tony.
up?
Oh, people get mad, but here's one thing I want to be clear. When you're 18, which I still think is young, but you're an adult in America, you can do whatever you want. That's your choice. But to do something to children and encourage them to do something outside of their family, I may not agree. I may not agree with your decisions. I may not agree with your choices in life. As a Christian, doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean we're going to come burn you down or hunt you down. But at the same time, we corely feel that you have no right to impose something on our children or affirm our children something that goes against the parents' will.
It is, and I really find it. I mean, we're talking about people who got angry about it. I'm going to the policy itself, and there's just this one little piece. I mean, it's rather long, but it says school personnel should not disclose information that may reveal a student's transgender status, gender nonconforming presentation to others, including parents.
That's
I mean, it's
insane.
written within that supposed non-existing policy. So when we're finding out, and we're going to talk about another issue on a different podcast when it comes to books and all of that, because I have someone I want to bring on. But I would think that people would be more upset about finding out that that is something within the Kansas school district, their policy, than finding out, getting upset because we're actually bringing, shedding some light on this stuff. And so that just kind of blows my mind. So we went to the school board meeting. There was 200 plus. It was a complete shock to them that so many people showed up, filled every seat, filled the overflow. People were standing up in the hallway. I mean, it was just incredible. And so when we did that, what was the sense you got in the room? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I felt it was like there was something electric going on in there. It was just pretty powerful. But what were you thinking? And I know it was a year ago, but here
Yeah,
we
no,
are.
I remember. Well, I would say 99.9. Everyone was like not happy with this. What was going on? There were a couple of teachers that were totally against what we were bringing light.
Right, right.
And it's interesting how the left always wants to use, when you disagree with them, it's called hate. They call it hateful. We're being hateful, and these poor little children, and we're hating them, and no one's doing that.
No,
And we didn't actually. We were very careful, Tony. If you remember,
we
we weren't
were,
even
and respectful.
addressing that issue. We were addressing the issue of keeping information away from parents.
Exactly.
And you have no
Exactly.
right. And they were trying to twist that, even to the point, the following week, a bunch of those school teachers and LGBTQ people showed up to my church and protested my church.
Right. Right. Just a crazy response to our addressing an issue. And as a parent, 4 kids of my own, 13 grandchildren, my concern is for them. And exposing this policy or whatever it is that they were trying to do was pretty important. and we just couldn't just let it go. And so we're there, we address it. And the funny thing is, we're sitting there, and you brought this up when you were speaking, Apostle Kelly, that they couldn't even look at the people who were speaking. We're talking, and they're not even really seemingly paying attention to what's being said. How did that make you feel, the response of the school board?
Well, if you remember correctly, they didn't want most of us to speak. They
Right,
didn't answer
right.
the phone.
We had to
They
say
did
a
not
couple
let
of
us
things
make
about
an
it.
appointment. And thank God there was one lady on the school board that did a motion that was not even going to let.
Right, right.
But yeah,
And I think both of us said something about that. Please
yeah,
let people speak. They came here, give them the time to share what's on their heart.
that
Absolutely.
was very.
Right.
And we give.
And I think, and we can talk about this on a separate podcast, but I think there's an agenda, and I think we understand there's an agenda that's going forward where they're doing this. The nuclear family is under attack, and all of these different quote unquote policies and things that are being said are there, and you know this, and I know this, to destroy the family, separate the family, and bring a false narrative, and that become reality. And I see that's what's happening right now. So at this point, tell me what you think. What do you think needs to happen from here? School just started, and unfortunately we had that incident in Minneapolis where school just started, and two children were killed and 17 injured, and allegedly the young man had a name change. Mother helped him and went from Robert to Robin, but that was a transgender individual, and we've talked about how that's happened time and time again. What do you think needs to happen from here? Pastor Jeremiah, jump right in.
I think transparency in our school system is probably the bare minimum for a free society. And parents are not bystanders in the lives of their children. They are literally the God-given authority for children. And my pastors always taught it this way: they're your parents, but they're not. You're the parents of those kids, but they're not yours. They're God's, and you're to take care of them as if God was giving you this duty, this task. And schools have deliberately concealed so many things, and what's being taught and what's manipulated families to keep them in the dark is not protecting our children. It's hurting them. And
That's right.
And when you undermine families, you undermine the very foundation of a healthy society.
Exactly. You're exactly right. They're undermining a healthy and a growing society. And the other thing with this, it needs to continue to be brought out. Attention needs to continue to be drawn to these things. And parents need to be made aware of this. And I don't know if Pastor Kelly had to go, but one of the things that we understand is that pastors aren't standing up.
Yeah.
Most of them are just kind of either sitting back, letting things happen around them, not addressing issues, or they're on the other side. That's a whole nother topic there. So if you could say anything to either pastors or parents right now, what would you say to them? And I'm bringing Pastor Kelly back into the conversation.
Did you get him?
Okay. I'm working on it. He's there. Yes. So two things, Pastor Kelly, in regards to what do you think needs to happen next? What needs to happen here now that this is being exposed?
Yeah, I think number one, it's all great to have a meeting and all those kind of things, but there's got to be some follow through, and hopefully the Department of Education will follow through with it. And I hope the community, when you bring light to something, that they would follow and express it. We're in this mess because of people being silent. Let's just be honest.
Right.
We're in this mess. Things have been done hiddenly, and then all of a sudden, I think the days are over where people are fed up with this. Oh, well, what can I do? You're seeing a pushback. You're seeing culture trying to, that's been pushed down as people are saying, no, that's not how we want to live as Americans. That's not how we want to live as a family in a community. And again, it doesn't mean hateful.
Right. There's nothing.
Back to the institution. It is an education institution. Educate our children in academics to help them get jobs, be better people, and so forth. You are not a social construct there. That's not what you're there for. because there's people there with other religions, other things, and so forth. You respect, but don't sit there and push all this agendas that they have and celebrating these things that have nothing to do with education.
Right. And again, I believe it's intentional. We're going to come back to this in a different conversation. I believe it's all intentional. So, standing up is something, and not to say be courageous, but really people need to be courageous. Pastors need to stand up. Parents need to stand up. Once light's been shed, I tell you what, I would have a hard time having my kids in the public school system right now.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time. And if my child came home with some of the nonsense books that we've been talking about, we're going to talk about that again. Information. There was something today where in some state they were giving some survey to children, and it was just disgusting. And these things happen. As a parent, I don't know. I would lose it. I would say, no, there's no way. I am, done. The public school system has failed, let alone on issues of, education. When we've got kids that can't read, can't write, can't do simple, math problems and things that deal with life, they can't do them. We've got a real problem. So if you could say anything to a parent right now, pastor day, a person, what would you tell them? What would you say?
Tony, to be honest, the devil is hunting the next generation, and silence from the Christian, the preacher, or passivity in the home is handing the devil bullets for that. And this is not the hour for entertainment driven or distracted parents, right? Because we want to be friends with our children or be popular and connected to culture. This is not the time for that. This is the hour to cover our children in prayer and to anoint them and to teach them the word of God like their lives depended on it, which they do. And we have to have Christians that don't sugarcoat the gospel in this next season. Stop outsourcing discipleship to TikTok and Netflix and videos on YouTube, and actually taking your kids to church so that they can hear the gospel. The bloodshed that has happened recently in our nation is a cry for intercession from the church and from pastors and from parents. And if we don't stand up now, the next generation could be the next generation, or the next victim could be in our pews and in our homes. But I really
What's happening more and more,
that the church can rise up and be a interceding part in America. And I still believe that parents' prayers can shift, even in the public school, can shift atmospheres. We have people in our church, we have youth in our church. The first week of school, they were back preaching the gospel. And one of the brothers just sent me a text and showed me a pride table that was sitting in the lunchroom where they were trying to get people to sign up for a pride group. And he was just preaching right in that same area the week before. And so I still believe that no weapon formed against our children will prosper if we fight in prayer and if we really contend in our vocal, because the culture is always going to be loud, but we have to be louder than the culture. And it's time to build what God is doing, not just inside of the church, but inside of the hearts of children that are going to schools. And so It's a war on our kids. So we have to fight back.
I do. I'm with you 100%. Why I'm doing this, why we do what we do to stand up against this onslaught. And it's vital. It's important. It's a war. It's a battle that we're facing. And ultimately, we know who wins. But you know what? While we're here, we have a duty and a responsibility to our family, to our neighbor, even to our neighbors, to do what's right, to speak truth and live in reality. And so, yes.
I think there's something that you said, a war, and it's very truthful what you say. And the left would say, stop pushing your views on us. We're not all going to believe what you believe. And that's 100% right. And that is America. But that is exactly what you are doing on us by silencing. At the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, we can all agree to disagree. But the way America is supposed to be set up, and our communities with elections and everything, you vote your values, period. You vote what you believe in, period. If that leans liberal, if that leans conservative. Now, the bigger thing is being Christians. Where are the pastors? Because the community is a reflection of what's being preached. What you are, what you eat. And when pastors, like just in Kansas City, Kansas, there is estimated 160 churches. in our small community. We're not a big community. Kansas City, Kansas is one of the smallest counties here. But there's 160 churches. And I'm wondering, with every denomination of every church, white church, black church, multiracial church, Spanish church, what is being preached? Because really, this is indoctrination in our schools. But what is church? You're hearing God's word, renewing your mind. People that are supposed to go there because they want to know more about God and what God wants from them. Us preachers share the gospel. We don't share it hateful. We share it in love, okay? But we share the gospel. And as Christians, Christ followers, are supposed to adhere to that and apply it to our lives outside of the church. So there's a deficiency somewhere where our community is falling apart morally. Jesus is the cure for confusion. He is the cure for abortion. He's the cure for drug addiction. He's the cure for suicide. He's the cure for everything. But Jesus must be preached.
You're talking about a deficiency, and I'll just say it plain. There's a deficiency in the pulpit.
Yeah.
I think that's where it really lies.
The gospel, I say it all the time, it's become polluted and diluted. They've taken stuff out, they're avoiding and putting stuff in that has nothing to do with the word of God.
Amen. And I'm so glad for two things. Number one, that this has been brought to light because the schools, the school districts, the school boards need to be held in account for policies that these kinds of policies, especially when it comes to not informing parents on what's going on with their own children. That's something. The other thing is, and Pastor Jeremiah, you brought this up, and we're going to have to do this on a different time. And both of you, we're going to do this on a different time. But the books, and the things that I see and we have seen, whether we've been in meetings, pastor meetings, roundtables, talking to Moms for Liberty, the books that are in schools right now are just as disgusting. They are trying to indoctrinate our children to believe something that is an absolute lie, and they're disgusting. And parents don't know, and they need to wake up. And if we're not telling them, then who will? We know the truth. We have it. We see it. This stuff is getting exposed, and we have to do something about it. But you're going to say something.
We couldn't even post some of the pictures that are in these books. We couldn't even post them without getting banned.
It's unbelievable. So parents, please pay attention. We're going to come back and we're going to have a podcast where we actually show what we can of this material, because parents need to know and be on the lookout for these kinds of things. So I'm going to be following this investigation. I so appreciate Attorney General Chris Kobach. And actually from the federal level, we've got the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, who's actually going after this as well. So be following this investigation to see what happens, what comes about with these schools changing their policy. They've been asked to do it. They've been exposed to do it. I think you'll be doing the same thing. But I want to thank you both for being here. So I appreciate it so much. And we're going to continue on with these kinds of discussions. So until next time, folks, be courageous. Thank you, sirs.
Bless you. We appreciate what you do, Tony.